My neighbour, Mr. Alistair Finch, was a fossil preserved in the amber of his own reclusive habits. He lived in the Victorian house next door, a place that seemed to suck the very light from the sky, its gables like the spines of a sleeping beast. For 10 years, I'd seen him maybe a dozen times, a tall, gaunt silhouette behind a lace curtain, or a swift, dark figure retrieving his mail at precisely 3:17 p.m. every afternoon. He never spoke, never waved, never acknowledged the existence of the rest of our quiet, suburban street. When the ambulance and the police cars arrived 2 weeks ago, their lights painting the quiet night in frantic strokes of red and blue, it was the most excitement our street had seen in decades. He died, they said. Natural causes. A heart attack, likely alone in that cavernous house for days before a concerned postal worker noticed the piled-up mail. The for sale sign went up, and the estate clean-out crew followed. I watched from my living room window as burly men in coveralls hauled out furniture shrouded in dust cloths. It was on a Thursday, my day off, that I saw one of them toss a small black trunk into their dumpster. It was an old thing, scuffed and battered, with tarnished brass fittings. It landed with a solid, unceremonious thud amongst the broken chairs and mouldy boxes. I don't know what compelled me. Morbid curiosity, I suppose. The thrill of touching a piece of a life so deliberately hidden. That night, under the cover of a moonless sky, I slipped into my backyard, climbed the fence, and retrieved the trunk from the dumpster. It was heavier than it looked. Back in my garage, with the door securely closed, I pried it open. The smell was the first assault. A cloying mixture of old paper, dust, and something else. Something faintly sweet and rotten, like forgotten flowers in a sealed room. Inside, nestled in faded velvet, were a few items. A fountain pen, its nib crusted with ancient ink, a pair of round spectacles with one cracked lens, and a book. Not a book. A journal. It was bound in a leather that felt unnervingly supple, almost like skin. It was a deep, dark brown, and on the cover, stamped in what looked like flaking gold leaf, was a single, intricate symbol. A spiral that seemed to twist in on itself infinitely, surrounded by angular, unreadable script. There was no title, no name. I took it inside, my heart thumping with a guilty rhythm. I told myself I was a historian, an archaeologist of a single forgotten life. I poured a whiskey, settled into my favorite armchair, and opened the cover. The first page held only a name, written in an elegant, spidery cursive. Alistair W. Finch. The early entries were mundane, almost disappointingly so. Dated from 40 years prior, they detailed his move into the house, his frustration with a leaky faucet, his observations of the neighborhood. His prose was dry, academic. He was a botanist, it seemed, with a particular interest in mycology, the study of fungi. He wrote about spores and mycelial networks with a passion that was absent from his descriptions of people. We, his neighbors, were the specimens, a colony of predictable organisms. But then, the tone began to shift. October 17th, 1985. The Blackwood property continues to fascinate me. The soil composition is wrong for this region. The core samples I took from the backyard are laced with a fine, phosphorescent silt that I cannot identify. The local flora is aggressive. The ivy on the north wall seems to have grown 6 inches in a week, and it has developed thorns I've never seen on a Hedera helix before. I must procure more sensitive equipment. I took a sip of my whiskey. Weird, but not terrifying. Just an eccentric old man with a thing for dirt. I read on. November 2nd, 1985. It is not the soil, it is what sleeps beneath it. I conducted an auditory survey late last night. With the specialized microphone sunk 3 feet into the earth, I recorded it. A sound, a low rhythmic pulsing, not a heartbeat, slower, deeper, like the respiration of a mountain or the tide of a subterranean sea. The dog from 2 houses over howled for 3 hours straight. The family, the Wilsons, they had it put down this morning. A nuisance, they said, if they only knew. A chill trickled down my spine. The Wilsons, they were before my time, but I'd heard the story. Their old collie, Baron, had supposedly gone mad one night, barking and howling at nothing until animal control was called. I'd always thought it was just an urban legend of our little street. January 14th, 1986. The dreams have started. I am walking in a forest where the trees are not trees, but great, branching fungi that weep a viscous, glowing sap. The sky is not a sky, but a ceiling of stone, impossibly high. And there is a voice. It does not speak in words, but in concepts, in images that bloom behind my eyes. It shows me patterns, lattices of reality. It calls itself the sleeper in the stone, the root of all echoes. It is hungry. It has been hungry for a long, long time. My own throat felt dry. I drained the whiskey, the burn doing little to ward off the sudden cold in the room. This was no longer the diary of a botanist. This was the descent of a man into madness, or something else. The entries became more frantic, the handwriting sometimes degenerating into jagged scrawls. March 3rd, 1986. It speaks to me when I'm awake. The pulsing is in the walls now. I hear it in the pipes. It showed me a ritual, a way to nourish it, a small thing, a trade. It demands an offering, not of blood or life, not in the crude way of stories. It demands a memory, a potent one. I offered it the memory of my mother's funeral, the crushing weight of the dirt on the coffin, the scent of lilies. I performed the rite in the basement, drawing the symbols it showed me in my dreams with the chalk I had blessed in moonlight. The air grew thick, sweet, and then the memory was gone, not faded, gone. A hole in my mind, but the pulsing, it softened. For a moment, it was satisfied, and it showed me gratitude, a vision of stars that were not stars, burning in a void that was not empty. I saw the architecture of time. I am both terrified and exhilarated. I closed the journal, my hands trembling. This was insane. A memory-eating entity living under his house. It was the rambling of a lunatic. I looked around my quiet, normal living room. The TV was off. The clock on the wall ticked steadily. It was all so reassuringly mundane. But I opened the journal again. I had to. The entries detailed more offerings. He gave up his memory of his first kiss, the taste of salt water from a childhood beach trip, the pride of his doctoral thesis defense. Each time he described the ritual, the sweet, rotten smell, the momentary satisfaction of the sleeper, and the fleeting, mind-shattering visions he received in return. He was becoming an addict, trading his past for glimpses of cosmic truths that were slowly unspooling his sanity. September 9th, 1986. It is not enough anymore. Single memories are like drops of water to a man dying of thirst. The sleeper grows restless. The pulsing is constant now, a vibration I feel in my teeth. It has shown me a new ritual, a greater offering, It does not want my memories anymore. It wants perception. It wants me to offer the sight of a specific thing, a beautiful thing, so it may experience it through me. I am to find the most beautiful thing I can witness, and during the apex of the experience, perform the rite. I will give it the sight forever, and in return, it will grant me a deeper understanding. I am to go to the park at dawn. I turn the page, my heart hammering against my ribs. September 10th, 1986, it is done. I saw a young woman. She couldn't have been more than 20, walking a small dog as the sun broke over the hills. The light caught her hair, a brilliant coppery red, and she laughed at something. A sound so clear and full of life, it felt like a physical blow. It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. I stood behind the large oak at the edge of the pond, performed the rite, and offered the sight of her to the sleeper. The air grew cold. The sweet smell was so strong I gagged. And then, a grey film descended over my eyes. The world lost its colour. I am writing this in a monochrome hell. I can see shapes, light and dark, but the colour is gone. The red of her hair is a memory I can no longer see. The sleeper, however, was pleased. It showed me the flow of time in this place, like a river of pus from a wound. I saw the faces of everyone on this street, and I saw how their lives are mere echoes of the sleeper's own dormant thoughts. We are its dream, and it is beginning to wake up. A profound horror settled in my gut. This wasn't just a story anymore. He was describing a real, tangible loss. He'd gone colorblind as a price for what? A glimpse of some horrific truth. The next several entries were barely legible, written in a shaky hand, sometimes in the margins, sometimes over previous text. It whispers all the time. Now I can't sleep, it wants more, it always wants more. The dog barks, it knows the Wilson boy. He plays in his sandbox right above its head. He is so loud the sleeper does not like the noise offering. Must be closer, must be from the colony. Then, an entry that made my blood freeze solid. October 31st, 1986, the Wilson boy. Timothy. He has a laugh. It is a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. It is the most beautiful sound I have ever not heard. I can still hear. It has not taken that, not yet. It is the sound I must offer. The ritual is prepared. The symbols are drawn on my basement floor. At midnight, when the boy is asleep, I will stand outside his window. I will perform the rite and offer the memory of his laughter to the sleeper. It will take the sound from the world, and I will be granted peace. Or something like it. I felt sick. Timothy Wilson. I knew that name. He'd been a kid on this street. There was a story about him too, that he'd woken up on Halloween morning, decades ago, completely and utterly mute. The doctors found nothing wrong with his vocal cords. He just couldn't make a sound. He never spoke again. It was real, all of it. The journal wasn't a work of fiction. It was a record of real events, real atrocities. Alistair Finch hadn't been a madman. He'd been a conduit for something ancient and vile living beneath our feet, and he had been feeding it pieces of the world around him. I wanted to stop. I wanted to throw the journal in the fireplace, to burn it, and forget I ever saw it. But a morbid, terrifying compulsion kept me turning the pages. The entries became less frequent, the handwriting increasingly alien, as if the writer was forgetting how to be human. July 4th, 1987, the offering of touch. The feel of morning dew on grass. Gone. I received a vision of the sleeper's form. It is vast. It is not a body, but a shape of angles that hurt the mind. It is the cancer that grows at the heart of reality. February 2nd, 1988. The offering of smell. The scent of rain on dry earth. Gone. I understand now. This street, this land, is a focusing lens. The house is the pupil. I am the nerve. It sees and tastes through me. The final entry was dated just a month ago. The handwriting was barely human. A series of jagged, desperate scratches. No more to give. I have given it colors and sounds and smells and textures. I have given it the laughter of a child and the tears of a woman in grief. I am a hollow man. It speaks and I hear it in my bones. It says it is almost aware. It says the dream is thinning. It says when it wakes, the echoes will cease. The colony will be silenced. It is so hungry. It asks for one more offering, a final one. It does not want a memory. It does not want a sense. It wants a witness. It wants eyes that are not mine. It wants someone to read the record, to know its story, to acknowledge its impending awakening. That is the key, the final rite, the offering of attention. It wants someone to read this journal, and it knows you are reading now. The journal fell from my numb hands and thudded onto the floor. The room seemed to tilt. The steady tick of the clock had changed. It was no longer a tick-tock, tick-tock. It was a low, rhythmic pulsing. Thump, 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 like a slow, massive heartbeat. It was in the walls. I scrambled away from the chair, my back hitting the far wall. The pulsing grew louder, vibrating up through the floorboards, into my feet, my spine. It was the same sound he'd described, the respiration of the sleeper. And it was here, under my house. It had always been here. The air in the room grew thick and heavy, and a sweet, rotten smell began to bloom. The smell of forgotten flowers, of decay. The same smell from the trunk. It was pouring from the journal, seeping from its pages. I looked at the journal lying on the floor. As I watched, the pages began to turn on their own, slowly, as if in a breeze. But the air was perfectly still. They stopped on the last page, the one after the final entry. A page I hadn't seen before. Writing was appearing on it, welling up from the paper itself, in a dark, oily ink that wasn't quite black. It was the same spidery cursive as Alistair Finch's, but it was writing itself right in front of me. "Thank you," it wrote, "for your attention. The final seal is broken." The pulsing became a pounding, a deafening drumbeat that filled my skull. The light in the room began to dim, not into darkness, but into a monochrome grey, just as Finch had described. The vibrant blue of my rug, the green of the plants, the warm brown of the wood, all drained away into shades of grey, the offering of sight. It was starting. I screamed, but no sound came out. The sound was sucked from the air before it could leave my lips. A crushing silence descended, broken only by that monstrous subterranean pulse. The offering of sound. I clawed at my face and my eyes, but it was no use. The grey world was all I could see. I stumbled towards the front door, my limbs feeling heavy and foreign. I had to get out. I had to run. I yanked the door open and staggered onto my front porch. The street was grey. The sky was a flat, lightless grey. My neighbour, Mrs. Gable, was watering her flowers. She turned and waved at me, a smile on her face. But the motion was jerky, like a broken puppet. And her smile, it was too wide, stretching far beyond the limits of her face. A rictus grin in a world without colour. She was an echo, and the echo was breaking down. The pulsing was everywhere now, coming from the ground, the houses, the very air. It was the heartbeat of the world, and it was waking up. I fell to my knees on my lawn, the grass feeling like brittle paper under my hands. The sweet, rotten smell was so overpowering I could taste it at the back of my throat, a taste of graves and forgotten things. And then I felt it, a presence, not in front of me or behind me, but below. An awareness so vast and ancient, it made my own mind feel like a speck of dust. It was turning its attention upwards, towards the surface, towards the colony of echoes that scurried on its skin, towards me. It saw me. The witness. A pressure began to build inside my head, a terrible psychic weight. Images that were not images flooded my mind. The fungal forests, the stone sky, the angles that cut, the vast, slumbering form beginning to stir. I saw the true shape of my house, not as wood and brick, but as a nerve cluster on a gigantic sleeping body. I saw my street as a pattern of decay on an infinite skin. The sleeper was turning in its slumber. I tried to shut my eyes, but it was useless. The visions were inside me. I was a part of its dream, and the dream was ending. The last thing I saw before my mind completely shattered was my own hand splayed on the grey grass, and as I watched, the skin began to crack and dry, flaking away like old paper, turning the same colour and texture as the brittle blades beneath it. I am writing this now in a desperate final act. I am back inside my house. The world outside my window is a silent, grey tableau of breaking forms. The pulsing is my only reality. I can feel my memories dissolving one by one, being drawn down into the earth. The memory of my mother's face is gone. The sound of my own name is next. It is taking everything. It is digesting me. I am the final offering. My attention was the key that unlocked its cage. My perception is its first meal in a new waking world. If you find this, if you are reading these words on a screen, hear my warning. It is not over. The sleeper is awake now, and it is hungry. It knows that there are other colonies, other worlds, other dreams to consume. It knows you are out there, and it is coming. Do not look for me. Do not speak my name. Do not even think of this story, because attention is the one thing it craves more than anything else, and it always knows when it is being watched.